right, it is time for Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. In my Friday Reads videos, I share how my reading has been going, including what I finished, what I've started, and anything interesting that I'm carrying over week to week. And this week I do have a little bit of everything. Yay! Let's start with the finishes, as always. So I did have a big finish this week, and that is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I think I only had about 45 pages left, and I read it all in one go, which for me, to be honest, is a lot to read in one go. But I gave myself a carrot of that I would be able to start another book when I finish this, or restart another book on my currently reading once I finish this, because they're both sort of speculative fiction, and that got me to finish off this book. So this is a title that's on my sci-fi, fantasy, and weird exploration list. This is a title that was on the first year of the BookTube SFF Awards, if I remember correctly. I think it was the first year, 2015. It is Canadian. It is speculative fiction, asterisks. I'll get to that in a second. And I am glad that I'm done, to be very honest. I know that I've mentioned in videos before that I think this will be my last survivalist fiction, and I really do think that is, and that actually helped me to finish it. I started this in July 2020 during a Shakespeare readathon, because all I knew about this was that it was Canadian, it was speculative fiction, and there was a Shakespeare element to it. And I'm like, great. So I started it in July 2020, and this is about a pandemic, and one of its settings is Toronto, which is where I live. I mean, I think when things like happen, because that was the first year of COVID, that was before we had vaccines. So it was not a good choice for me. And I think people actually either lean into or veer totally away from things that are similar to current situations, whether it's something that you're going through personally or something that's worldwide, like COVID. And for me, I don't lean into fiction about things that are happening in real life. So that was not a good start. So I think I read it for a bit. I put it to the side. It's come up in several of the currently reading challenge situations of like pulling from the jar. I never reached for it for other times. But one of the things that I did learn through the currently reading challenge is that when I don't finish something during a readathon or during the set period of time I give myself, I actually just put it aside and start a new TBR and just go with that. And that's not the best. And so I haven't been participating in as many things because of that. And that's not great, because I like to participate in things. I think for me, probably the best thing to do to get back into participating in things is to be honest, read things that I can ensure I can finish by the time the event happens. So that means reading shorter works, kids books, graphic novels, manga, short stories, plays, poems, whatever, anything that's not a novel, because novels take me a long time, and this is close to the record. It's not the record, but this took me 3 years and 10 months to finish. Now, I think all in all, I actually do have my reading journal here. Now, that was not consecutive weeks, and I do track how many actual weeks it took me to read. Oh, I don't have the full information. So I read 116 pages last year, which was probably over 3 to 4 weeks, and I've read this for another 5 weeks. I find that helpful to know, because also I will read something for 3 weeks and put it aside and then come back to it, but I have noticed for when it happens in a readathon, I don't always do that. So generally speaking, although this took 3 years and 10 months, I probably read it for between 8 and 10 weeks, which is 2 to 2.5 months. And that's, I think, reasonable for me. That's an okay pace for a novel. And it is also just simply the truth. So anyway, in terms of what I thought about this, I know that I don't like survivalist fiction in any, format. I have seen a lot of it over the years. I have watched a lot of the zeitgeist things up until certain points, like Walking Dead. And 28 Days Later. Like, 28 Days Later is a brilliant film. It's also horrifying. And I'm not talking about the zombies. There are themes that come up in survivalist fiction that I am not a fan of, that I do not want to read about, that I do not want to think that that's what's going to happen if people are in that situation. And that, you know, in terms of power dynamics, in terms of loss of order, in terms of what often is portrayed as what happens to women. I just don't, and what people do or feel they have to do to survive, whether that's in a malicious way or in a defensive way. These are not themes I'm interested in exploring. I find them way too upsetting, and I did sometimes find it hard to sleep when I was reading this, and this deals with it, I think, in a very well done way. And also, I will say, it is beautifully written. And those are also things that I don't like about the genre, some of which, I think most of which are in this, and they just don't speak to me. It's one of the reasons why I stopped reading The Stand. I don't want to explore that, and that's fine. Other people are interested in it, and that's fine. So, and honestly, the Shakespeare element of this was quite light, but one of the things that kept me with it is that it did talk about the arts more generally, and it was nice to see the arts included and important and relevant in a post-pandemic world, or a post-disaster world, whatever you want to call it. Also, I don't really consider, this is kind of sad, and this is something that's kind of like we wouldn't have known before, but this does not feel like speculative fiction because there's been a pandemic, right? So that's really the speculative fiction element to this. For me, this is much more literary fiction. There wasn't a lot it's just the pandemic that is the speculative element, in my opinion. I really thought that, especially given the title Station 11, I was hoping maybe they'd end up in space or something. So anyway, it's just one of those ones, it's not for me, but I have no idea what I'm going to rate it, and I don't know how relevant that is, because mostly what I learned from it is that's not a genre I want to read more from. I do know that I still plan on reading the two biggies that I haven't read, which is, of course, 1984 and Brave New World. I think I'm going to give myself a couple of years before even considering that, and even those I wish I had read before some current events. Not even current events anymore, but it just has not been great. So yeah, but I did finish it, and so that takes me down to 5 titles on my currently reading, which is good. I have 2 weeks to go and 5 titles, and I honestly did not read a lot, but I'll talk about that more when I get to the titles that I carried over. I did finish a couple other titles this week. Actually, in this one, the themes in this one was pretty tough and realistic. So I read Usagi Yojimbo Volume 33, The Hidden. And this, as opposed to the other ones, which are usually like some sort of like mini arcs, or like individual story, 3-part story, or like 5 individual stories, this one, The Hidden, was one story from start to finish. And Volume 32, I think, was all mysteries. So it's interesting to see over the different volumes and collections how they can be different. And so this really was one long story about Usagi and Inspector, what's his name? Inspector Nee? And there's something that a lot of people want, and a lot of people are going to go really far to get it. And so it was interesting to see the theme, and it was hinted a while back, and it is based in history. It is something that, and there is author's notes at the end to explain it. So I thought it was really good. And I gotta say, I'm getting a little sad because I don't know what year this came out, but I'm getting close to being caught up. And I started Usagi Yojimbo back in 2019. So I'm on volume 33. Like I usually, and this year I've been really quite consistent with reading it, but I'm getting close to being caught up. And I don't know how I feel about that. It's a historical action. Usagi's a ronin, a masterless samurai, and travels and helps people and helps with investigations, or gets into confrontations, or people confront him, or like it's action adventure, and I really enjoy it. So anyway, so I did finish another volume of that. I also was thrilled to see that my hold came in for Wandance Volume 5. This is a manga by Coffee. And the series is about a guy who's in high school who joins the school dance team, and how that story evolves, and he befriends a girl that's in it, and the cast of characters expands over time. And so this one, I don't want to spoil it for anyone else where this one goes, but I was really excited, and I'm super excited that volume 6, my hold came in for that as well, because these two do sort of go together. I would actually say 4, 5, and 6 would be better read in sequence. And volume 7 has been translated, and it's coming out in October, but my library doesn't have it listed yet. But I'm thrilled that I'm going to get up to date with what's available for me. I'm really enjoying that series, and so it was really nice to see that hold come in. I am also continuing to read Persona 4, and I just started volume 7, and I'm going to be reading volume 7 and volume 8 for Dai's Monochrome Manga Club, and this is a sort of group of kids, a group of high schoolers, trying to solve a mystery odd situation. It's quite, I'd say it's pretty dark, I would say, and in terms of what the elements of are the mystery, but I really love the friend group. This one, they are on a trip together. Teddy. And I'm really enjoying it. I don't know the story at all. It does feel like this one does feel like maybe a starting of a bit of a new arc in the story. And I just started it like this morning, so I'm only a few pages in, but I only have these 2 volumes for 3 days, so they're going to be my priority. And I am continuing to read Diary of an 8-Bit Warrior: Crafting Alliances by Cube Kid, illustrated by Sabotan. I am just like, honestly, this is taking me forever, like forever. And it's hilarious because I have been doing a lot of gaming and some crafting and some gathering. I don't play Minecraft, I play World of Warcraft, but it's just, some of the stuff is just really funny. I don't remember what the beginning, I don't really remember when I started this, but I don't quite remember what the plot is too much. But I'm just rolling with it at this point. I just think it's hilarious. But on the other hand, it's totally fine that it's taking me this long, because it's letting me know that I really am prioritizing some of my other reading. But I have been prioritizing the manga first, because the Diary of an 8-Bit Warrior is just, I mentioned it last week, like instead of being like full page like this size, it's 2 pages like this. And it's just really hard, and it uses a lot of different fonts and colors and stuff, and I can't believe I'm someone who's going to say, I find that hard to read. It makes me feel old to say that. Oh my god. Anyway, it's like when everything's emphasized, nothing is emphasized, and that's sort of how I feel about how there can be like 3 or 4 different fonts and things in like 5 different sections of a paragraph in bold. And I'm like, am I supposed to read the whole thing, or do I just read the larger text here? Like, what's going on? But it's fine. That's all on me, because I'm impatient and I just want to finish it. But it's fine. It's enjoyable. If I was reading it in physical edition, I would have finished it ages ago. It's just a format situation, and that's fine. So other stuff that I'm carrying on with, of course, I'm continuing to carry on with the final 5 titles in the Currently Reading Challenge. This week, I actually only made progress on 3. One I left to the side, which is Story of Your Life and Others, because this is one, I have 1 story left in this, and it's speculative fiction, and it's heavier thinking type stuff, so I left that. I'm like, okay, Station 11, I'll finish that this week, and I'll get to Story of Your Life and Others next week, or the week after, depending on how things land. But I am reading Tess of the Dubervilles by Thomas Hardy. This is the chunker, I think. Well, I have 221 pages left, but I only read about 35 pages this week, but I did hit the 400 mark, and the version I hit 400 pages, and the version I have has about 620 pages, so I'm in good shape. I got into the next phase. It's broken down into phases. This is the temperament and the tempo and who this speaks to is not me. It's it's very long drawn out, short chapters, but I feel like long drawn out. It takes a long time for something is gonna happen or likely gonna happen to happen. So there's a lot of lead up to it. And then like when it happens, it's quick. And then there's a lot of afterwards. And I'm like, that's not my favorite. And it's very much like a soap opera. Like, you know what's coming when you watch a soap opera. You know that this is going to happen and that's going to happen and there's trouble stirring here and that person knows more than they should. But it takes like months for any of that to unravel. And that's sort of how I feel about Tessa the Do Reveals. It just takes so long. And I also, one of the challenges I have with it is I feel, well, I think saying more would spoil some of the story, but I feel, and even though I feel like it's something that is definitely representative of the time, it just makes me livid in terms of equality or inequality or inequity. It really bothers me in terms of like sort of circumstance situation. So I won't go into it more. But I do feel committed at this point. I'm 2/3 of the way through. I really hope I can finish it in time. I am reading more of it now that I only have 5 titles left. So I am making some pretty good progress on it. And the title that I told myself, the carrot of finishing Station 11 was that I would finally restart A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So this is the oldest of the books I'm currently reading. It never came up in the jars, and that's because it was a problem title from the perspective of this was a lapsed buddy read. So I started reading this with someone else in 2017, and then we just never kept reading it or talking about it. Like, other things happened and life. So for me, one of my things I needed to do this month was reach out to them and say, hey, remember back in 2014 or 2017 when we were reading this together? So they were like, go ahead, it's fine. That's totally fine. So we might buddy read, but maybe something nonfiction and something we have a shared interest in versus this work. So that's good on both counts, because one, it could be a potential buddy read for the future. And then also I was able to get back to this. Now I was actually on page 60, but given it's been a lot of years, I did go back to the beginning and I read the first 2 chapters, which I think was the first section. And I really like this. And for me, I think one of the only reasons why this kept on getting pushed back on the back burner, other than the fact that it was a lapsed buddy read, was that I saw, like, the whole trilogy is out now. It's a 3-book trilogy, and all of the titles, I think, are on the BookTube SFF Awards. And it seemed to have, everyone seemed to love the first book. And then the second book, some people, and then the third book, it felt like not a lot of people. So there wasn't a lot of incentive, but it's one of those things. I'm like, I can't believe I get drawn into that again and again. I don't necessarily have the popular opinion. I don't. Like, I actually actively try and read zeitgeist titles because I often avoid them because there's always that awkward thing when you read something really popular and then you don't like it, so I try to avoid that. But I'm like, I have my own opinion, and I had already started this, and I had really enjoyed what I read, and now I'm back to reading this, and I've really enjoyed what I read. So, and I really like, and I have read other stuff by V. Schwab. I read the Monsters of Verity series, and I really like that. And I like the worlds created, and I like that it's interesting and unusual, but familiar enough to be grounded, but the differences are expressed in creative ways, and I get lots of great visuals in terms of clothing and setting and things people use or touch or are engaged with. And I mean, like, all of that's a huge win. And this is like, I haven't read like a fantasy novel for like ages. So I was just like eating this up. So I've only read about, I think, 40 pages. Maybe 38 pages. So I'm not even at where I was, but honestly, it's been so many years. I'm like, I don't know. It was familiar enough. Like, I was like, oh yeah, there's this and that. Oh yeah, I remember that. So far it is going well, and I'm very, very happy about that. I did also get not a lot of pages in, but I got some pages in for outline alphabets, and as a treat, I thought maybe you would like to see them. I don't know, maybe you don't. But I got 4 alphabets in this week. I will admit, it is not my best work, but I just want to get I just want to get this done. It's a pretty interesting Y. I like that K. It's an interesting J. But now that I've done a lot of them, I mean, a lot of them are pretty similar. Like, how you, like that I, how can you tell it different from another I? But that O, and I've seen that O before. I've seen you before. But still, there's some interesting stuff in there. And so I did 4. I don't remember if I said that. I did 4. And one of the things that frustrated me is when they had multiple versions of the same letter, because I just wanted to get it done. I'm like, I don't want to draw A 3 times. So I like this one. They had some really expressive curly cues. Even that R, you don't often see an R like that. And this S, they had one that's on I don't know what it's called, the line, and then this S goes under for a lowercase. That's pretty unusual. I have trouble with S's, which makes me a little embarrassed given that, it's the first letter of my name. Very, very expressive G. That S ended up pretty good. So, and then I love it when I get ones like this because they're a lot faster to do. And this one's really, really interesting in terms of its proportions. You can really see it with the Y, and what it does is that the verticals are all like V's, like sharp V's, and then things that come in from the sides are all curved. You can very much see it with V. You see it with K as well, so it's like a high heel and then a big cutout curve. So for me, that's one of the reasons, even though I'm not doing great and I don't know how much this will inform how I draw or do outlines or anything, I do find engaging with the work in that way is very helpful. This one's also, the proportions are very different. It's a very close quarters, like very short, and the proportions are much higher. And the cutouts for the letters are much smaller, and it pushes things much higher. These are all very, very tall in comparison to other ones. And then the next one, this one, and then I get ones like this where I'm like, there's not too much different, like the lowercase f, the lowercase k. Well, it's got some interesting E's, but there's not too much different, like that lowercase t, I wouldn't be able to pick them out of a lineup. I don't think there's a letter lineup. Not like there has to be, but it didn't engage me as much. And then I think I did. Is that? No, and then that's from before. So I thought I did 4. Oh, did I only do 3? No, that was 4. 1, 2, 3. Did I only do 3? Oh no. Or did I miss a page? Shoot. No, I did 4. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, that was the swoops. I like that H, yeah. And then the Greek Roman Greek where we started. So I got 4 alphabets done. So I am down to 10 to go. 10 to go in 2 weeks is actually a little, I would have much preferred 8. I'll put it that way. But I have given myself permission to skip any that are very similar to each other. I haven't taken that yet. I haven't taken myself up on that yet, but I do think that that's fair. I mean, I've been working on this a long time. If I feel like I know that letter set, I think it's okay. Will I actually end up doing that? Probably not. So maybe what I'll try and do is do 2 on the weekend. I usually don't do that kind of stuff on the weekend. I don't work on my reading on the weekend. I work on it on Sunday. Sunday's my reset day. It's when I do my reading plan and stuff like that. So maybe I'll try and get 2 done before I reset, and then I'll have 4 left, 8 left, which is 2 a week, which is much more manageable because I did do 4, but I'm more likely to do 2 to 3 in a setting. And so that was actually a little too long for me. It was a little too hard to stay to the page at that time, to sit at a desk for that time. So that's one of the challenges with the work, is that I can't just sit there and do 10. Like I can't. It's just not possible. It's too hard for me. And so I have to pace myself. And so if I get 2 more in, then I'll be at 8, which is 4 and 4, which I think is manageable. So here we are getting to the point where I have now about 2 weeks left, excluding, the Saturday and what's left of Friday. But my reading this week, in terms of the currently reading challenge, was dismal. Like, finishing station 11 was a huge win. And then, I forgot to notate so I am so apologetic. I should not be doing this at this point, but if I don't, I'll forget. I forgot to update the outline alphabets. So I got 4 pages in from that. Yeah. So I read 77 pages. But yeah, like I read one day that I read 60 pages, one day I read 64 pages, and one day I did 4 pages. So, and that's it. And I had 2 days where I read nothing, and one where it was 4 pages from outline alphabets. I'm trying for 60 pages a day. I only hit 2 out of 5 days this week. Now, Sunday was a holiday, and we did have a family event, and there was preparation and lead up to that, the actual event, and then resting or recuperation after that. So I knew that was happening, and I tried last week to get ahead on those pages. I wasn't able to get ahead, but I was able to stay the course. So this week I definitely did not I definitely did not meet my numbers, but I mean, it's hard to say. I'm trying not to be too planny about it. I do think that next week I will be able to finish Story of Your Life and Others with the 1 story that's left. That'll get me down to 4. And then outline alphabets will take me to the very end. Test of the Rebels will probably take me to the very end. Darker Shade of Magic, I have no idea. But one thing about Darker Shade of Magic is in comparison to the other work, I can read that likely at night, as opposed to most of my reading I like to do sort of earlier in the day, as opposed to before I go to sleep, because before I go to sleep, I don't always retain the information, so I have now decided not to read classics or literary fiction then. But I think Darker Shade of Magic, given that I'm familiar with the author's work, and I'm actually more, even though I don't read a lot of fantasy anymore, I am way more centered in fantasy stories than in literary stories, so I think I'll have a better retention. And then I do have a romance with 90 pages left, and that I haven't picked up recently, and I know that I'll finish it in 1 to 3 like nights. It just depends on when I start it. So I'm trying not to worry, because it's only 2 more weeks, and I do know I did do the math, because I just can't resist doing the math. So if I wanted to do the math, I would need to add, instead of reading 5 days a week, read 6 days a week for the next 2 weeks. Or the other option is that because I'm trying to actually finish by Halloween, but I'm really trying to finish by the Thursday before Halloween, because that's the end of that particular reading week. If I have to, I can read on the Sunday and Monday, and potentially, but not the Tuesday of Halloween, because Halloween's a holiday. So I do have 2 extra days at the end of the month with the Sunday and the Monday if I need to. So I'm just going to try and be more, what is the right word? More, well, one, from doing the videos over the past little while, I can tell that my reading goes up and down. Although I always try and hit my goal, it fluctuates wildly. And so far, I've still sort of stayed the course, even though this week was horrible. I mean, I got a finish in, but this week the volume was not as good. But also, I mean, it was a holiday week and a short week, and that always pushes more things on other days. And so to have the expectation that I can maintain my reading to be the same when I have more other stuff to do is not really realistic. I keep on feeling like I'm missing something in terms of being able to make that happen. But the truth is I need to attend to other things because of being busy on other days. So it's just, I don't know. It's happened so many times that I'm like, well, if I want to change that, I have to make some changes, and I haven't figured out either how to do that, or if I want to do that, like if I want the result so much that I'm willing to shift other things. And so far the answer has been no. Or it's just, it's just the sort of like, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But I also do know, a lot of the things in terms of me, I get really excited when I'm close to the end of things. So I push forward and I will move ahead, so once I get close to the end of whatever it may be, whether it's the end of a section or the end of not the end of a chapter, the end of a section, the end of a book, the end of, in outline alphabets, I think there's like 2 alphabets for one letter, 2 alphabets for one letter, and then 6 for another. So I'm like, oh, even if I get like 2 today and 2 tomorrow, then I only have 6 of the W's left. Like, whatever. I know the things that incentivize me. And so I just need to work with that and just be like, okay, this week was a bit of a miss in terms of numbers, but I did have successes in other ways. That's life, you know, like it's just, and so hopefully next week I'll make some good progress and also be just like in a better mood, because this week was a tough week, like in terms of the world and lots of things, and it was also a short week, which can be more stressful and tiring, and so, you know, just try and move onward and upward, and fingers crossed that will be the case. And we'll see how things go. So anyway, that is my week. I think we're at week 41 update. And I hope that your reading is going a little better than mine, or maybe even a lot better. But ebbs and flows. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with a new video soon. There should be a haul video going up on Sunday, so look out for that. Thank you so much for watching.